They watch you carefully, as if you are always on the verge of doing something violent, though you have never raised your voice. In their eyes, your silence becomes a weapon, your stillness a threat. They call it intimidation, a presence meant to unsettle, but it is nothing of the sort. You do not seek to impress, to dominate, or to scare. You simply move through the world without needing their permission, without performing for their comfort. And yet this refusal to conform, to react on cue, unsettles them more than any outburst ever could. They are projecting their fear, their expectations, their need for spectacle onto you and calling it menace. What they do not see is how carefully you carry yourself, how internally disciplined your reactions are, how entirely indifferent you are to being misunderstood. Calm detachment is not an act. It is a state, earned through patience and the deliberate cultivation of internal equilibrium. You realize, slowly, that influence rarely demands effort. It arrives as a byproduct of presence, a consequence of refusing to be carried by the currents of expectation. Others strain to fill the void created by your silence. They speak louder, move faster, gesture more emphatically, each motion betraying an assumption that you will react, that you will conform. But when you do not, when you remain composed, their judgment falters. The world attempts to measure you, and in your stillness, it fails. Your restraint becomes a mirror, revealing not what you are, but how others construct their understanding, and how easily that understanding can crumble. Detachment carries a duality. Within it lies freedom, the freedom of choosing where to invest energy, the freedom of observing without immediate compulsion to interfere. And yet, it also provokes an unspoken tension in others. Curiosity, suspicion, subtle unease. These are the shadows cast by your quiet authority. People are wired to respond to movement, to sound, to expression. And when those cues are absent, they compensate. They probe, test, and sometimes retreat. You are neither manipulative nor overtly commanding. You are simply a presence that refuses to meet expectation with expectation. This is influence, unclaimed yet undeniable, arising from the internal architecture of composure rather than the external construction of action. The psychological weight of calm detachment is rooted in observation. You see how others reveal themselves when not observed, or when they believe they are the ones in control. Every gesture, hesitation, or insistence is amplified in contrast to your stillness. And in recognizing this, a subtle clarity emerges. The most profound power rarely resides in what is done, but in what is not done. The restraint of your own impulses becomes a lens through which the behavior of others is refracted, making their intentions more visible, their biases more exposed. In this space, you are simultaneously invisible and central, a quiet axis around which the scene unfolds without your intervention. Yet calm detachment is not devoid of internal tension. There is a small, almost imperceptible friction, the awareness that your equilibrium unsettles others. Perhaps it awakens envy, perhaps fear, or simply a quiet curiosity. This tension is not weakness. It is the acknowledgement that presence carries consequences. To remain detached is to inhabit a space where you are both liberated and responsible for the subtle effects your silence produces. You reconcile this by accepting that influence need not be asserted. It can simply exist, a shadow trailing your awareness, a byproduct of the stability you maintain within yourself. In practicing detachment, you begin to perceive the interplay of human expectation more clearly. You notice the impulse to fill silence, to demand response, to control through reaction. And when you withhold that response, a subtle recalibration occurs. People adjust around you, not always consciously, but inevitably. This recalibration is a reflection of something deeper. The human tendency to misread stillness as weakness, to interpret calm as consent, and to underestimate the internal processes that define another's composure. You do not correct these misjudgments. You simply exist in a space that exposes them, letting the quiet equilibrium speak for itself. In the end, the power of calm detachment is not a skill applied, it is a state inhabited. It is the unspoken certainty that arises when you are no longer compelled to prove yourself through action, noise, or reaction. Freedom and subtle influence coexist, inseparable yet silent. Others will test, they will wonder, they may even fear the simplicity of your presence. And yet you remain unmoved, not in defiance, but in quiet alignment with the internal order you have chosen. In this stillness there is clarity, and within clarity a kind of inevitability. Presence becomes authority, silence becomes influence, and the space you occupy is defined not by assertion, but by the profound, restrained power of simply being. There is a moment in every confrontation when the world expects you to break. A sharp word, a deliberate slight, or even a passing judgment slides across your awareness, and instinct leans toward reaction, anger, defensiveness, explanation. But mastery begins in that pause, in the quiet recognition that you are not obliged to meet their tempo. The mind can perceive every provocation without surrendering to it, observing the intention behind the act while remaining detached from the noise it creates. In that space, control is not about suppression, but about understanding the architecture of your own response, where it begins, how it travels, and how it dissipates. You start to see that your internal landscape is a sovereign territory, and no external force has automatic jurisdiction over it. This recognition alters perception. When someone expects agitation, your calm registers as aggression. When they expect compliance, your silence feels like defiance. And yet underneath these interpretations lies the truth of what is happening inside. You remain unshaken. Others will read your presence through the lens of their assumptions, but their projections are not yours to carry. What seems like conflict is often nothing more than a mirror reflecting their need for control, their discomfort with restraint. You are both participant and observer, witnessing the world's insistence on your reaction while consciously denying it entrance. In this, the line between mastery and surrender becomes stark. Every provocation tests more than your temper. It tests your capacity to occupy the space between stimulus and action. That space is not inert, it is dynamic, alive, and observant. It sees intention before it reaches you, weighing significance without judgment, processing without panic. This is not a trick, a mental maneuver, or a posture to impress. It is an alignment with your own rhythm. The world moves, urges, and pressures, but it does so outside your sphere. Your internal authority is measured not by the absence of discomfort, but by the refusal to be dictated by it. You feel fully, deeply, yet remain untouched. That is the quiet power others cannot grasp, because it is invisible and refuses to perform. Even in isolation, this mastery shapes interactions. When you speak, it carries the weight of unshakable stillness. When you remain silent, it carries the presence of deliberate control. People interpret your behavior according to their own frameworks, often inaccurately, because mastery over internal reactions cannot be read superficially. It is a quiet intelligence that does not require validation, a psychological gravity that pulls without force. The moment you recognize this, the habitual tug of provocation loses its authority. The world continues to push, to test, to provoke, yet you occupy a place untouched by the surface turbulence. You are both observer and actor, fully alive yet refusing to be hijacked by circumstance. The paradox is subtle but profound. Mastery over reaction does not remove the world's provocations. It allows you to remain intact despite them. Anger may flare around you, frustration may circle, chaos may unfold, but inside there is continuity, a steady current of self-possession. Others will rarely comprehend it, and that is not a loss. Their interpretations, their judgments, their insistence on eliciting a response are irrelevant to the truth of your internal sovereignty. In the quiet moments that follow, when action is necessary or silence is sufficient, you act with a clarity that has been forged in restraint, not impulsivity. Ultimately, the world cannot touch what is guarded by conscious awareness. You inhabit yourself completely, responsive without being reactive, engaged without being carried away. Mastery is not a title to claim, a status to announce, or a performance to display. It is the ongoing practice of observing, understanding, and choosing. Every provocation is not a threat, but an opportunity to inhabit your center more fully, to test the integrity of your inner space, and to witness the illusions of control that others cling to so desperately. In this quiet vigilance, there is a final, unspoken truth. The only power worth having is the power over oneself. And in that you remain immovable, unresolved, quietly whole. People rarely see what is placed before them. Their perception is a lens, warped by the curvature of fear, desire, and self-doubt. When you move through the world with calm certainty, you invite something they cannot tolerate: clarity. That clarity illuminates the shadows they carry, and in that illumination, you become an unwilling actor in their internal drama. Every misjudgment, every critique is not a statement about you. It is a statement about the dissonance within them. Yet even as you recognize this, the mind resists. There is an instinctive pull to defend, to explain, to adjust yourself to fit the contours of their misunderstanding. You feel it, almost imperceptibly, a quiet friction between the serenity you embody and the turbulent reflections cast upon you. And it is here that the paradox of being understood, or rather of being misread, reveals itself. The misinterpretations are not random. They are carefully structured, even if unconsciously, around the insecurities people refuse to name. Someone who fears their own indecision will perceive hesitation in you where none exists. Someone who fears exposure will see judgment in your silence. Their projections are precise, intricate, a map of their internal chaos disguised as observation. You begin to notice patterns, the way anger slides easily into critique, how admiration is twisted into suspicion. And the more you witness it, the more detached you become, not through denial, but through understanding. You see the invisible lines of projection before they settle, and you watch them stretch over your presence, useless, almost ceremonial. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible shift that occurs when you stop reacting. The world wants a response because reaction is confirmation, a bridge between their perception and reality. When you maintain your internal equilibrium, the bridge collapses quietly. Their projections fall into emptiness. Misunderstanding persists, of course. It is inevitable, but it no longer carries the same weight. You are not redefined by the mirror of their minds. Remaining fully yourself amid misinterpretation requires patience with silence. It requires inhabiting your own clarity without the compulsion to reshape it for those who cannot hold it. There is a strange freedom in this, a psychological economy of energy. When you stop explaining, when you stop proving, their world continues to move, but it moves without you. You are present in ways they cannot comprehend. You occupy the space entirely, and the tension of being misread diminishes because you are no longer negotiating with perception. It is simply happening around you. And in the quiet that follows, you begin to understand the deeper truth. Perception is rarely, if ever, about you. It is a reflection of what exists within the observer, their unresolved fears, their hidden contradictions, their longing for control over the uncontrollable. You witness it fully, without resentment, without compromise. And in that witnessing, something settles. Misinterpretation remains as it always will, but it loses the ability to disturb you. The world continues to project, but your calm presence no longer trembles beneath it. In the end, being misunderstood is not a failure. It is a sign that clarity has emerged in you where it has not yet in others. And that clarity, unshaken, unyielding, exists quietly, like a current beneath still water, invisible to most but entirely real. The projections around you may ripple endlessly, but you remain fully present, untouched, observing the dance of misperception with quiet inevitability. Decisive action carries a weight that is rarely visible. When confronted with nonsense, distractions, or manipulation, some people react with force, with noise, with an insistence on being seen. Others, far fewer, simply move. They remove the clutter, address the problem, and leave the room unchanged in outward drama. The effect is unmistakable, yet subtle. Those who act without performance are often mistaken for aggression or dominance. It is not the act itself that commands attention, but the absence of performance around it, the lack of validation, the absence of display, the refusal to explain. In those moments you realize that integrity in motion is more potent than any carefully crafted projection. Effectiveness becomes a quiet force, often misread because it does not seek applause. This brings an internal conflict few confront directly. To act without performance is to risk misunderstanding, to risk being labeled as cold, intimidating, or feared. The mind measures itself against the world, weighing the invisible cost of authenticity. Every choice is an experiment in restraint. How much to reveal, how much to leave unsaid, how far effectiveness can stretch before it becomes threatening. Yet, the paradox persists. Those who survive this balance discover that clarity of action displaces the need for recognition entirely. Their presence becomes a measure not of spectacle, but of consequence. What is happening beneath the surface is a recalibration of priorities. Performance exists to shape perception, to invite acceptance, to signal control. Action without performance abandons all of that. It strips the ego from motion, leaving only the effect, the result, the truth of the act. And because the world cannot immediately interpret this absence, it projects, it guesses, it judges. Misunderstanding becomes inevitable. And yet the individual who masters this tension finds a quiet sovereignty. The act carries its own authority. Recognition is incidental, effectiveness is inherent. There is a subtle rhythm in this restraint. Decisions are not delayed by anticipation of judgment, nor are they accelerated by the need to assert identity. The mind remains present, observing friction, anticipating consequences, navigating tension with precision. It is not effortless, it is deliberate, but it carries a kind of calm gravity. Others may react with discomfort, envy, or curiosity, but the one who acts without performance is untouched. They are not performing courage, decisiveness, or power. They simply move where clarity demands. In that movement, silent and precise, shapes everything around it more profoundly than any declaration could. Ultimately, there is a quiet inevitability in this way of being action. Without performance is both shield and signal, a boundary and a truth that requires no interpretation. It does not boast. It does not explain. It does not justify. And in the stillness that follows, in the space where mislabeling and projection linger, a clarity emerges, a subtle awareness of what integrity in motion can accomplish. The tension remains, unresolved and alive, but the observer who understands it feels a shift. Effectiveness need not seek validation, and presence need not perform.